Border Patrol agents have seized record amounts of fentanyl. We're talking about thousands of pounds of drugs here, literally, as Mexican cartels continue to flood American streets with deadly opioids every day. Joining us now to talk about this is Wisconsin Congressman Scott Fitzgerald, back with us here on the show. Congressman, good morning. Nice to see you again.
Good morning, Rob. Good to see you again. Good to see you.
Not only are people pouring across the border every day, that's what we hear about every day on the news when you read an article about the crisis, but it's the thousands of pounds of drugs that are coming across every day. That makes every single state in America a border state, and it happens quickly. I know you were just down there at the border, but how bad has this problem gotten?
Yeah, the fentanyl issue is kind of a sidebar to everything else that's being discussed about as those immigrants come across the border. So Senator Ron Johnson and I have been working together for the last couple of months to once again address the issue of fentanyl. It falls into this area where, because it's closely related to opiate drugs and some of the stuff that's kind of been utilized by the cartels, it's not labeled correctly, and as a result of that, we're working on legislation right now that might tie up those loose ends.
Yeah, so I want to talk more about that because Senator Johnson worked on that. It was several years ago. I believe it was 2017. There is a loophole in the existing law. Basically, the law is just written poorly. And this, by the way, this is something that I would hope would be bipartisan. But basically, this would be the first step in stopping this problem, stopping the crisis. How important is that?
Yeah, you want to make it a Schedule I, which, there's some opposition, believe it, from certain corners.
Really?
Because it's related to the opiates. And, obviously there's many issues. And in Wisconsin, when I was in the state legislature, we worked on this issue, passed multiple bills related to the opiate crisis. But fentanyl kind of falls into this middle area. And as a result of that, I think at the federal level, it's become even more important to kind of hit it directly and say, no, this should be a Schedule I narcotic. And as long as it's labeled that way, it's going to be very clear for law enforcement who have been asking for this for many years, saying, this has to be addressed.
Yeah, and why would a Wisconsin congressman care so passionately about this? Well, your state, Wisconsin, has been hit especially hard by this opioid crisis. I don't think most Americans have any idea how quickly drugs can go from crossing the border illegally to crossing main streets in towns across the country. It can happen in less than a day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at kind of the pattern, it makes its way, and let's go back one step further. I mean, a lot of this stuff is originating from China. It makes its way to Mexico. It comes across the border, and then it makes it into cities like Denver, where it's distributed nationwide. I mean, the entire West. And if you look at what's coming into Wisconsin, any law enforcement officer will tell you, it makes its way pretty much the same paths that regular commerce uses to get into truck stops. And once it's in a truck stop, it makes its way to all different corners of the state. And the Midwest has been specifically struggling with not only opiates, but crack and fentanyl, which is part of that whole scene,
Yeah. Vice President Kamala Harris, she was tapped to manage the border crisis March 24th, so a long time, more than 3 weeks ago. Yesterday, she said she plans to go to Mexico and Guatemala, but I don't understand how you can speak with foreign leaders with any expertise about a crisis that you haven't seen with your own eyes.
Well, I think what the vice president's worried about, what the White House is worried about, is the optics. I mean, if you see many of the members of Congress, and there's a group of us that are preparing to go down there, if you look at kind of what's happening right there, they must be scared to death. They have the vice president even close to this disaster that's been going on now for 60, 90 days, ever since the new White House was sworn in.
Yeah, and her qualifications, I don't know what her qualifications are to lead a crisis like this, but House Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana put her face on a milk carton yesterday. And this is fine. It's tongue in cheek. And I get that it's kind of lowbrow, but I think the point of the House Whip was to make sure the American people saw this and get this out there. This was everywhere yesterday, and I think it makes a good point. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Whip brought it up in conference and kind of rolled out the numbers again. And when you're looking at 20,000 kids that are completely on their own crossing the border. No real plan after they get across the border. I mean, those are the types of things that Whip Scalise was trying to relay to the whole conference. And I think there's 70 some members that have been down there already. There's a couple more groups that are going to be down there in April and May. And I think first and foremost, the one thing we have to continue to focus on is when you're looking at the numbers of individuals that have to be handled down there, and news stories emerging from members who are saying they're seeing 737s full of immigrants with manila folders under their arms with certain destinations throughout the whole country. So what we're fully expecting is, these people are going to continue to be dumped into the United States. And like you said, so it's gone from being just a border issue to a nationwide issue very quickly. And that's alarming.
Do me a favor, Congressman. I'd love to have you back on once you get back from going down there. I think it's telling that of the 70-plus members of the House and Senate that have been down there, it's overwhelmingly Republicans. Democrats refuse to go because that would be acknowledging that there is a crisis, which I think is pretty
very good, Rob. Oh, yeah. Thanks for highlighting the issue, and we'll make sure we do that.
We're happy to do it. Thank you. That is Congressman Scott Fitzgerald of Wisconsin. Thanks for being with us this morning. Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.